New reaction, former President Obama speaking out for the first time about that racist video posted, then deleted, to President Trump's Truth Social account, which depicted the Obamas as apes. Obama agreed with those who called the video a distraction, but says it also points to a deeper problem in our politics.
There's this sort of clown show that's happening in social media and on television, and what is true is that there doesn't seem to be any shame about this among people who used to feel like you had to have some sort of decorum and a sense of propriety and respect for the office.
With me now, Don Calloway, former Missouri State Representative and CEO of Pine Street Strategies, along with Democratic strategist Jenna Arnold and Republican strategist and MS Now political analyst Susan Del Percio. Welcome, guys. Good to see you again this weekend. So is that what it really boils down to, a lack of decency and respect? And how do we, as a country, get that back?
It's always great to hear from former President Obama because he has this knack for making us raise our eyes to some higher principles. And that's what he does right here. He's exactly right. Of course, it's easily to point out the disturbing and virulent racism and sexism in most of the things that come not only from this president, but from the MAGA ideology. But the reality is that this time in our politics has degraded the value of public service, such that we no longer are living in a world where we see the presidency as having the prestige and the valor and the nobility that it once did. And that's unfortunate because that will permeate our entire politics. And I think that's what former President Obama is talking about. When you lose shame and when you allow yourself and leaders to behave in these abhorrent fashions, what it ultimately does is degrades the entire nobility of the universe of public service, and it becomes this clown show. So, that's where we are, and there's a real danger from the policy that flows from a clown show mentality.
So, Jenna, President Obama also had some advice for his fellow Democrats, which includes both unity and some healthy debate. Take a listen.
They're doing such crazy stuff that it shouldn't be hard for our side to coalesce around the areas where we agree on and focus on that. And I think that that is going to happen if we are effective in winning the midterms, if we then have a robust primary for who's going to be the next Democratic president. We shouldn't be afraid of having a robust debate.
So how do Democrats find this balance of less internal fighting while having robust debates to make it overall stronger?
A quick response to that question, Alex. I actually think the Democrats have been more aligned now than ever around our value. And I love the choice of words that Don selected when he referenced Obama's call to a shared nobility. And I have to say, it is shocking to me that in a conversation, that same conversation that you're clipping right now, where Obama confirmed that there are aliens, his words, not mine, that you would think in that kind of statement from a former president of the United States, arguably the most unifying headline in human history, that our divisions and our pettiness toward each other could instantly dissolve. And it doesn't seem like there is anything that we can do to be as noble to our humanity as we could and should be in the shadows of a statement like that. And it's not a reflection of our democratic values. It's a reflection of how we see ourselves as a collective humanity. And I think there's such an opportunity here. And I'd like to center that idea of noble coming togetherness that Don started out with.
Yeah, no, very good point. Although I would say I would love to have that conversation in detail. Okay, you guys, what do you think of that? But I'm going to move on this to you, Susan. Because of the decade-long stronghold that President Trump has on Republicans, are they completely missing out on robust internal debates? Or is it a beginning now as they do see a future beyond Trump?
There may be debates within Republican circles, but they're kept very close to the vest because there is no room to debate with Donald Trump or his administration for Republicans. Are they starting to break? I don't think they're going to break with Donald Trump, but they're starting to realize there is, as you just said, a time after Donald Trump. We even saw that with Marco Rubio's speech overseas yesterday. He was a lot more inclusive with Europe than Vance was, Vice President Vance was before the year before. So there is some room, but right now, I think the reason why Republicans, some are willing to speak up is because the president's poll numbers are so bad and that they have to take the chances to separate with the president if they're from swing districts wherever they can.
So, Dawn, there is a robust primary, as Obama put it, just days away. Early voting begins Tuesday in the Texas primaries, including that closely watched Democratic Senate primary. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and State Representative James Tallarico are battling it out. One piece in the Texas Tribune argues Black voters could prove decisive, making up a fifth of likely Democratic primary voters in Texas. Do you agree with that? And where do you think the contest stands right now?
Well, full disclaimer and disclosure, Jasmine Crockett is a friend of mine. We grew up together in St. Louis, so I'll try to give you the most unbiased perspective that I can here. Black voters will absolutely be determinative in a Texas primary. And if Jasmine Crockett can harness them for this election, I think she has a very good shot to defeat James Tallarico. It's not an end of game situation for James Tallarico by any stretch of the imagination, because he's a young man with an extraordinary bright career in Texas politics ahead of him. But I think it's important that Jasmine Crockett shows what she can do and not only beats James Tallarico this week, but shows that she has driven Black votes out of suburban Houston, suburban Dallas, the growing Black population in San Antonio, because she's got to find a way to maintain keeping them engaged until November. And that's a very long runway. But if she can show that she got out that educated Black population, it's going to be their jobs for the next 6 months to keep that energy into lower income populations who don't vote with the frequency to have them out in November. I think she's probably the best candidate to beat a Republican if Texas is going to go blue in the Senate.
So this administration is very focused on what they call election security. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem suggested her department has a major role in that during a news conference promoting the passage of a national voter ID law. She said this. Listen up.
I would say that many people believe that it may be one of the most important things that we need to make sure we trust is reliable, and that when it gets to election day that we've been proactive to make sure that we have the right people voting, electing the right leaders to lead this country.
I'm going to ask both you, Jenna and Susan, if I can, for quick answers. Who are the right people? Who are the right voters? Who are the right leaders? Who's she talking about, Jenna?
Well, I would say, to echo Don's sentiment, that it's certainly the Black voters. We're targeting and staying laser focused on trying to close the exclusion gap, which is entirely contingent on us closing the stability gap in northern Philadelphia. There's a huge opportunity there. And if Crockett can show that that's the target demo, and those are the folks that are carrying her across the finish line, maybe the DNC will start following suit in other places as well.
So what about Kristi Noem, who she's referencing, Susan? Who's she talking about? The right people.
Well, clearly she's talking about Republicans. She's following the president's lead when he said Republicans should take over elections. I think he said in something like 10 states, and then it was national, but then it wasn't. But at the end of the day, that's where she's going. She's saying Republicans should be elected and that she's willing to do whatever it takes, even if it means overstepping and breaking the law, it seems like, based on what her comments, which go beyond what you just showed the clip of, to get that to happen. Now, she does, of course, need to recognize that ICE agents cannot be within 100 feet of polling sites. It would be against the law. And that she really doesn't have a role to play here at all in this role. The only thing that she can do is offer certain amount of security, especially cybersecurity, to individual states should they want it. But that's all. That's the only role she has. So this is, I think, her trying to hang on to her job and please the president.
Joining me now, we have New Hampshire Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander. She serves on the House Armed Services and Small Business Committees, and we welcome you back to the broadcast. So, Congresswoman, you have Democrats who are demanding just basic law enforcement conditions to fund DHS. No masked agents, judicial warrants, higher training standards, real oversight they want. And polls show majorities of Americans now see ICE as out of control and also want reform. Will Democrats refuse to fund DHS until there are enforceable guardrails on federal immigration officers?
Alex, thanks so much for having me. And the answer to that is yes. What we are asking for is entirely reasonable, and it is consistent with what the vast majority of Americans want to see. Guardrails that are going to ensure that ICE operates with the kind of professionalism, the kind of transparency, and with the kind of accountability that we see, that I see in my local law enforcement all across the state of New Hampshire and across the country. Right now, DHS, ICE, and CBP, they're making America less safe. And I have no higher priority than to keep our communities safe. And that is what we are pressing for, reasonable guardrails that will achieve just that.
How do Republicans justify ICE agents wearing masks when you have police, you got sheriff, you got state law enforcement across this country who don't? I mean, what is the difference if any and all law enforcement work can bring retribution?
I have not yet heard a good answer to this. Look, what we've put forward are truly reasonable and proven methods that we see in our local law enforcement all across this country and that have worked. Public safety depends on public trust, and public trust becomes impossible when you don't have the kind of professionalism, transparency, and accountability that the American people deserve and that the American people need in order to keep our communities safe. And so when we're living in a moment in which masked agents are shooting American citizens dead in broad daylight, we have a huge problem that we can and must fix.
Yeah. Republicans are accusing Democrats of defunding border security, and some see President Trump's State of the Union address in about 2 weeks as an opportunity to further pin the blame for the partial shutdown on Democrats. So are Democrats prepared to withstand the political pressure and see this fight to rein ICE in all the way through? Are Democrats confident they have the support of most Americans after all the chaos and destruction and that which you're describing on our streets?
Look, my resolve in pressing for what my constituents need and deserve is boundless. And I will do what it takes to fight for what I believe is right, for what is required to keep our communities safe and to enforce the law. The vast majority of Americans, the people who I work for, want to see our laws enforced. They want to see them enforced with professionalism, with fairness, with humanity, the hallmarks that have always defined the best of American law enforcement. And that is what I'm pressing for. And my resolve in that is boundless.
Okay. So this week, a federal grand jury took the rare step of rejecting criminal indictments for you and 5 other Democratic lawmakers over that video that you made urging military personnel to disobey carrying out illegal orders. Now, you'd have to go back to 1798 to find the one time a member of Congress was prosecuted and jailed for exercising his constitutional right, essentially, to free speech. House Speaker Mike Johnson said what you did is probably a crime and charges are warranted. What do you say to that? I mean, what is behind this attempt to indict you and your colleagues?
Alex, this is an effort. The aim here is, I think, unfortunately very clear. It's an effort to intimidate us, to silence us, to distract us, and to harass us. And it will not work, because what we have said and done is to say what the law says at a moment in this country when we need moral clarity and legal clarity like never before. And we will continue to say what is true and what is right. And frankly, the fact that, according to press reports, 23 fellow Americans, a grand jury impaneled by this administration to pursue a completely lawless attack on us proves the point that it's an extraordinary thing for a grand jury of 23 fellow Americans to resoundingly reject this. But what I want to say is, our system is being tested in ways that we've never seen before, because this is just not how our resources should be used. Taxpayer dollars should not be used to persecute members of Congress for doing their jobs and for exercising their constitutional rights and responsibilities. We should be using taxpayer dollars to actually keep our communities safe and do what the Justice Department is designed to do. And that's just not what we're seeing under this administration, and it's an outrage.
Is it over, or do you have concerns that the administration will try to pursue charges again in a different court, perhaps a friendlier court historically to this administration?
I am concerned that because this administration is not bounded by the law, the president said that the biggest check on him is his own morality. Here, our system wasn't designed for an army of vindictive prosecutors in the Justice Department. There's no limit on the number of times they could press this case. And the standard, Alex, is so low. This is why it's been said that a grand jury could indict a ham sandwich. The standard is low. This is a forum that was designed to create an unlevel playing field that completely weighs in favor of the government. And so the standard is very low, and I think they're very motivated. But what they need to know, and I think what they have heard from the people themselves, is that this is an outrage, and they absolutely should not be wasting taxpayer dollars and our time on this outrageous persecution.
Well, apparently you don't register as a ham sandwich, because that federal jury was unable to put an indictment against you. There was not one who voted to indict you on that grand jury. Maggie Goodlander, it's good to